to lead to legal expanded sports betting throughout the country. Nick, what was your reaction to the ruling besides mild euphoria?
I'm not surprised. I think the Supreme Court did the right thing here in that it was always absurd that something would be against the federal law, but one state was grandfathered in, and now each state can make its own choice. I don't think it's going to change the lives of people who regularly gamble already, but people who don't regularly gamble, they're now going to see an avenue to it. Doesn't seem so seedy, doesn't seem so dangerous as it has in the past.
Yeah, I'm going to have to get a couple more seats in my AA meeting so some people from Gamblers Anonymous, GA, so they can get some help, because this is going to be
You're
bad.
nervous, man. You're nervous.
Oh, I'm not nervous. I'm just no fool. I just know people, the fans. I walk the streets. I know people swearing down that they understand sports more than Vegas. Man, they're building all those buildings for a reason. Supreme Court, yeah, they had to wake up. They had to do this, but man, they hurt the common man. Not good.
Wow.
All right, Giants tackle Eric Flowers finally reported to the Giants facility yesterday. He had been a no-show after the Giants declined his fifth-year option. Sort of a no-show at left tackle last year, actually. CC, can Flowers have a bounce-back season in 2018?
I'm going to say something rare. It wasn't his fault he was bad at left tackle. He was never a left tackle. He was playing out of position. It was the Giants' fault. They had a guy who was a situational player, limited in athletic ability, short arms, short reach, not the type of dimensions you want for a left tackle. He is a right tackle playing out of position, so now they need to secure him. He's a young player. He's going in the final year of his contract. I still believe that he is a valuable prospect for the Giants. If they're going to have the type of offense, they need him to solidify the right side, as Nate Solder, who came over from New England, solidifies the left side to protect my boy Eli.
With that said, if you were advising him, you would have advised him to handle this offseason a little bit differently, correct? Not being in contact with the team, not showing up early, reacting this publicly to the demotion.
Well, I want to play left tackle because there's more money in the left tackle. All right, when they move you over to right tackle and you're in the last year of your contract, it's a financial thing. So I'm not going to criticize him. That's a tough call, all right? But the Giants went out and spent a lot of money on their left tackle.
All right, let's move on to basketball. Draymond Green was called for a technical foul less than 2 minutes into Game 1 last night. He received it for shoving James Harden. Draymond said, quote, "I was a bit overzealous." Nick, what kind of tone did this set for Game 1?
Well, it set the tone that Draymond was then allowed to do anything he wanted towards the refs and not receive a technical foul. It was a brilliant gambit by him. Get a technical 1 minute into the game, then wildly and histrionically complain about each of his next 3 foul calls, which would have resulted in a technical if he didn't already have one, and then he wasn't called for another foul the rest of the game. He intimidated the refs. He should have received 3 or 4 technicals last night, and they wouldn't give him one. So, I mean, if you can game the system like that, more power to him.
Yeah, I'm glad this didn't become the main storyline in the game. I thought he was going to get thrown out in the game the way he started. I mean, the first 67 seconds, my goodness, going at Harden's throat like this. So he got himself under control, but he is the intensity. He's that intangible that the Warriors, that they do need.
All right, finally, the Celtics look to go up 2-0 on the Cavaliers in the Eastern Conference Finals tonight. A lot of people giving all the credit to head coach Brad Stevens for winning without Kyrie Irving and without Gordon Hayward. Here's Stevens on how he feels about the praise.
It's silly. You know, the praise is uncomfortable, and it's just something that these guys should be getting it all, and we all have a role to play, and we all need to play that role as well as we can.
True that. That being said, how much credit does Brad Stevens deserve for the Celtics' success this season, Nick?
Brad Stevens deserves more credit for the success of his team in 2018 than any coach in the league deserves for the success of their team. But that still could mean he's been overcredited, if that makes sense. If you want to chop it up into a pie, Brad Stevens, I'd give him about a third of it. I give Danny Ainge about a third of it for selecting Jason Tatum, for executing the Nets trade years back, for trading for Kyrie, having the assets to do it. And I give the players about a third of it for, despite the injuries, playing at the level they are, having that commitment to defense that they've had. There's no other coach in the league that I would give a third of the credit for the success their teams had. Only Pop would even come close to it. I think what people push back on is he hasn't been getting a third of the credit. He's been getting 80% of the credit. People have been acting like he's playing with a bunch of guys they signed out of Dunkin' Donuts on Mass Street. That's where people push back. But he's been brilliant, and he deserves a lot of the credit he's getting.
When you're successful, there's a lot of credit. It's just a matter of who you want to give credit to. But you have to start at the top of Boston, Danny Ainge. Him assembling the type of team that he had. A team that we didn't know that, man, they can sustain injury and still be able to maintain a high level. So that's one of the things you have to give Danny Ainge for. He's the one who hired the coach. All right? He's the one that had this college system. So he's a pro coach coaching at Butler. How did we ever know that? There's nothing he ever did at Butler that we thought would transfer to the NBA. So Danny Ainge's ability to be able to go out and find a guy that had something. We don't see this system work. We don't see college coaches go to the NFL and it worked. We don't see them coming from college basketball going to the NBA and working. So they've made a lot of the right decisions at the top. But this is a talented roster. This is Jason Tatum, the leading scorer, Nick. It's top 5 pick, right?
Yeah, number 3 overall.
Terry Rozier, what pick was he?
He was a 14th pick, I believe. It was lottery pick.
Okay, Al Horford. What about him?
Al Horford was first-round pick years and years ago.
Jaylen Brown, top 5?
Number 3 overall pick.
Okay, Marcus Morris.
Lottery pick, I think 12th.
Okay, Marcus Smart.
Marcus Smart, 6th pick of the draft.
I mean, my goodness, like, people don't talk about that. What other team outside of Golden State, and they're top-heavy because they got some of the superstars.
That many lottery picks on it? It's a good point.
I mean, so Brad Stevens is a very, very good coach. All right? They've done a great job as an organization getting the coach there. Brad Stevens, you got to give him credit for 2 things. He's come up with a game plan that, with this talent and injuries, is very, very effective. And number 2 is Brad Stevens has given, and his staff have given these guys what I call a recipe to be successful. At their end of the year meetings last year, all right, they got better. What he told them to work on, they got better. Tatum becoming a star. What they have helped him develop as a basketball player, that's what they do well as a staff. So you have to give him credit for game planning, and you have to give him credit for he has put together plans that these players can develop and develop their own individual ability to be able to blend into a team concept.
I think it's what you said earlier. There was such a fall from expectation when Kyrie Irving and Gordon Hayward were out that no matter what happened, even if there was just a modicum of success from Brad Stevens, you were going to say, well, look what he was able to do with these players. But those players happen to be very talented players, but without those 2 stars, superstars, you almost place them in a little bit of a higher pedestal as a result.
It's not the same as what we do with Belichick. Belichick, we give him all the credit, but he's playing with lesser talent than Brad Stevens. I know they're in the same region, a lot of the same fan base, but Belichick, he goes out and gets other players off other teams, turn them into star players inside of the system. But very seldom do you see those players go anywhere else and be very, very productive.
Yeah.
Brad Stevens, if they want to make some trades, man, they got a bunch of players that people would love to have them on their team.
And just quickly here, if the Celtics offensive and defensive rankings were flipped, no one would talk about that they don't have talent. If they had the #1 offense in the league by a wide margin and a mediocre defense, as opposed to what they had this year, which was the opposite, people will talk about how talented they are. It's hard for us via stats or even the eye test to see how talented guys are defensively, so we attribute that to the coach. And again, this guy's my coach of the year. I think he's the best coach in the NBA, but I do understand why it's somewhat overstated.
All right, let's play some Take Your Pick.
Okay.
Broncos president John Elway says his